Holy shit, was that 3? That was 3. That was 3. Oh my god. Oh, I wasn't recording. Someone clip that. Yo guys, what is up? Max in our first Descendant video, and today we're going over my updated guide to Valby. Now, Valby has always been one of my favorite Descendants to play. However, in the past, she was always like very good, but not at the very top of the pack. There was always some Descendants that were better than other things than her. Valby, with her most recent buffs, with her new tuning board, with the new external components, is genuinely one of the strongest characters in the game, and she does everything. She has some ridiculous boss damage, as you'll probably see from the intro, as well as the ability now to clear Void Erosion 30 solo very comfortably, and she's great at mobbing. This is a character that you can invest into and genuinely do all of the content in the game very comfortably. And I've got a bunch of different builds that you can rock on her that only require a small adjustment between them to kind of optimize her for all of the content in the game. We're going over everything you guys need to know. Hope you enjoyed the video. Let's get right into it. So the first thing to kind of understand and break down with Valby, because we've got a bunch of different builds here, is the value / damage of her one. Now, one thing that Valby can do, and that's kind of essential to understanding her kit and how to play her, is her first ability by default. When you cast it, it goes out and it bounces, and it makes all of these puddles that deal damage. Now, each of these puddles is an individual puddle. If you have max range, they can overlap, and when you have overlapping puddles, you can get multiple procs per second. Basically, you can have the puddles ticking the same enemy multiple times. So, as an example of that, let's just spawn one enemy in here. So, if I throw out my one on this enemy here, you'll see that they're basically going to be getting ticked twice. So, those are 2 ticks happening from our one, even though our one only ticks technically once a second. We're having overlapping damage happening. However, if we like jump and one on the ground, we can get this puddle to stack. And now, all of a sudden, off of the same ability, we've more than doubled our damage. And so, one thing to understand with Valby is she's got a bunch of Transcendent modules and a bunch of different ways to play. But what we're going to be using for bossing, what we're going to be using for Void Erosion, is the damage stacking of her one by being able to place it down and hit an enemy a ton of times. That's how we're going to be doing our boss melts with her. That's how we're going to be doing like a lot of killing the elites in Void Erosion Purge, is getting the one to stack up. And we're going to be using crit with that method. Crit works better there. And then we've also going to have non-crit builds that use like water play and hydro pressure bomb, where with water play you can still overlap the one. So I can have that tick that ticks once a second, and I can have this going, and now I get 2, but it doesn't stack nearly as much as the like one that bounces does. And so that's kind of just a mechanic to understand about Valby. If you want to get the most damage out of her, you want to be jumping and putting your one down with the bounce to stack up a ton of dots on enemies. All right, let's talk builds. The first is the crit supply moisture build. This is crit mobbing. This is going to be for, you know, special operations, your Sigma sectors, your 400% dungeons. We're going to be using supply moisture with crit. And the big thing to understand between this crit and not crit builds, because we'll have different like Arche Tuning boards and stuff, is we also will be using different weapons. The crit build will be holding the Blue Beetle. With the Blue Beetle, whenever we cast a fusion ability, we're going to be getting the arcane energy for 115% increased critical hit rate. So just casting our ability and standing on water with supply moisture gives us 97% critical hit rate, and that is with only 3 crit modules. So she basically is crit all the time. And if you're wondering the difference between the crit and non-crit, basically with this crit build, you're going to deal more damage, but you're going to have the kind of like awkwardness of the one not always going where you need it to go. It does have more damage, but it can be a lot more clunky to play, versus the non-crit build is going to have a lot more quality of life because it needs less crit mods. It's going to have more duration. It's going to be easier to play, more chill, but slightly less optimal for like damage if that makes any sense. So on the crit build, we're going to be using Skill Insight, Skill Concentration, and Frontlines. Those are our 3 crit mods. That gives us a ton of crit damage. It's also going to put us at our 97% crit. We're also going to be using MP Conversion and Nimble Fingers. This is what's going to give us our cooldown. We want to be spamming all of our skills and having them up a bunch with the changes with our Arche Tuning board. Her 1 is basically up 100% of the time. And so prior with Valby, I really prioritized using her 3 as a source of clear. But now that we can have such damage and such cooldown on her 1, I mainly am just using the 1 as her source of damage and now using the 3. So I'm not prioritizing dimension damage anymore on Valby, whereas I used to. So we're really going to be focusing in on the 1, and the 4 is also fusion, and that also does a metric ton of damage. So that's why we're going to be using focus on fusion here. We're going to be going power increase rather than non-attribute or focus on non-attribute. The main reason for power increase here is simply for the fact that the Enlightened Mage set that we're going to be using is giving us a lot of non-attribute skill power, and so that is one bucket that's getting a lot of damage in it. If we used non-attribute, focus on non-attribute, we'd be getting pretty significant diminishing returns. Power increase gives us another bucket of skill power, which is incredibly valuable. So it gives us a lot more damage going for power increase. And then lastly, we've got MP Collector for some quality of life and spam. Next, let's talk about the non-crit build. Now, once again, with the non-crit build, we're going to be holding the Peacemaker instead. And the Peacemaker, whenever we use it, whenever we use a dimension or fusion ability, we're going to get single reload for peace, which is going to give us stacking non-attribute skill power. For this, the non-crit build, we're doing it a little bit different. This is more quality of life focused, more chill focused. And because we have more slots, because we're not using 3 crit mods, we can go for things like skill extension. Skill extension super nice because it's going to give us more ticks and more uptime on our 1. And then we also have, the same amount of cooldown. But with this, we're also going to be picking up non-attribute amplification and fusion amplification for a lot more damage with our abilities, even though they aren't going to be critting. And I do go for focus on non-attribute here, just because, this is even more spammy. And the other mod that I like to run with this exact setup is Hydro Pressure Bomb. Hydro Pressure Bomb hits like a truck, and you basically spam your 1 out and then jump with your 2 to hit enemies. This hits multiple millions of damage. If we put our Arche Tuning board to non-crit real quick, just to give you an idea. And jump. That's all. 3 million jump. 4.4 million, I think it was. I didn't see that. Too many numbers. But this is a super fun mod. It's really strong. It'll one-shot most elites. And you can spam your 1 and just keep jumping around with it. Very cool way also to play non-crit. Kind of up to you for Hydro Pressure Bomb or Water Play. They're both pretty cool, and you don't change the build for either. Next, let's talk about bossing. For bossing, it's basically the exact same as the crit build. However, we're going to be swapping out MP Collector for Hyper Focus. Hyper Focus is something that it kind of depends on the boss. This is currently set up for Ice Maiden. Hyper Focus is 15 seconds of skill critical hit damage, which is a ton of damage. However, Ice Maiden's not down for that long, so Dangerous Ambush is the better mod for her, but it's not good against Ice Maiden. 1, because Ice Maiden's not down that often, and 2, Ice Maiden, when you break weak points, gives us a metric F ton of skill power. So this is basically non-existent. You don't notice the difference of Dangerous Ambush versus not, because it's a tiny fraction of your damage. And so Dangerous Ambush for Ice Maiden doesn't make any sense. And Power Increase, this mod, where is it? Power Increase. This is also skill power. Ice Maiden gives us thousands of skill power. So this is also just not worth anything. So that's why for Ice Maiden, we're going to be using focus on non-attribute and hyper focus. If you wanted to take this against a normal boss, aka not Ice Maiden, you would swap focus on non-attribute for power increase and hyper focus for dangerous ambush, and then you'd have your non-juiced bossing build, which will kill bosses faster. It's just certain things are just not valuable against Ice Maiden. But I wanted to show off this setup for Ice Maiden because Valby kills her very, very quickly. I've heard that the fastest kill for Valby with Ice Maiden is like 10 seconds. I don't have the like full setup yet. Like, for example, my reactor isn't fully even upgraded. So we've got a lot of work to do. But even with like suboptimal stats and stuff, she's still melting Ice Maiden, which is really, really cool. But yeah, the big change for the bossing build is basically picking up Hyper Focus to allow us to get that extra crit damage and go for focus on that attribute specifically for Ice Maiden. And lastly, we've got the Void Erosion build. This is, you know, bar for bar. The crit build, the big difference is for Void Erosion, enemies drop a lot of mana, and we want as much damage as we possibly can. So I go Decimator instead of MP Collector. You definitely could go MP Collector if you feel like you're having issues with mana. I haven't been having mana issues, so we go Decimator to give us a bunch of extra damage on the one. And that is the Void Erosion build. It's basically, you know, all of these builds for crit are very similar. They're mainly just swapping out the Arche Tech thing for quality of life, for damage, or damage against bosses. The reason we're not using Decimator for like 400% dungeons is it's just not necessary. Like, you're going to be deleting everything anyways. I'd rather have the quality of life for spam there, so that you can always use your abilities. All right, for weapons, some of these mods do matter, and I'll point out which ones like you actually do care about. For starters, the Restored Relic, we're using this to break weak points on Ice Maiden. When you break weak points on Ice Maiden, you get a skill damage increase that allows you to kill her. If you don't break her weak points, you don't do any damage with your skills. We're rocking triple fire rate cores with double fire attack cores on the Restored Relic. We want to get that damage out quickly and break her weak points. For the actual mods on this thing, I was a little lazy here. These are the mods you want to look for: Action and Reaction, Rifle Reinforcement, Fire Priority, Fire Enhancement, Fire Rate Up, Heat Circulation for even more fire attack. When inflicting burning, you get fire attack. The Restored Relic has actually very good status effect chance. It's a 33% chance to proc a burn, and also its special ability burns. And so basically, heat circulation is going to insta proc on the boss. Charge amplification, because we're not building crits, is another 40% explosive attack, which is awesome. But the big like weird thing here is multi-piercing sights, multi-hit damage 100%, and multi-percussion sights gives us 40% multi-hit chance. Multi-hit's actually really potent on the Restored Relic. It's going to lead to a lot faster and higher damage on this thing, so both of those are fantastic. The thing that I'm being a little lazy about is this mod. I'm going to be honest, I want to put a magazine size mod there, but I just don't have one fully leveled. So I was using ammo optimization, which gives me 25% explosive radius and 10% rounds per mag, which is pretty nice, but I'd honestly probably just swap this out for an expand weapon charge for the 49% increased rounds per mag. This just allows it so that when you are shooting Ice Maiden, it's more consistent that with all of the shots going out, you're going to be getting those 3 weak point breaks, and rather having to like reload and shoot again. This would just save you time and make your runs a little bit more consistent. So that's why I would go for expand weapon charge. But yeah, just swap this out. For the substats, I've got multi-hit chance, multi-hit damage, fire attack, and bonus firearm attack versus Colossus, with the two big ones being important are the multi-hit chance and damage. When those proc, you are getting a lot of extra damage. Then the Peacemaker, I don't shoot this thing. I like don't have it built. I don't really ever click like the shoot button on this thing. We're mainly just using it as a stat stick. Same with the Blue Beetle. However, the Blue Beetle we are using for bossing. And so the important things for this are actually fire rate and rounds per magazine. If you hit that as a substat, you're going to get extra shots on Valby's 4th ability. And then the mods that you want on this thing, the better concentration, better insight, don't do anything to her 4th ability, but you want a fire rate up, compulsive magazine, sharp precision shot, and expand weapon charge. These are the only ones that actually affect her 4th ability. And I'll show you that sharp precision shot works right now. So this is her 4th with sharp. And this is her 4th without it. Note that weapon buffs don't work for the 4. So, like, you're not actually carrying over the Beetle's weapon buff. But, you know, it's the weapon that we're holding that has our reactor mounting on. So that's why I've got that there. For her reactors change. This is what I'd recommend for non-crit. So were you going for a non-attribute fusion with skill cooldown and fusion skill power boost ratio, and then you're going to want a mounting for the Peacemaker. For her crit build, for bossing, you're going to look for something like this with a scout rifle mounting, and then skill cooldown and additional skill attack when attacking a Colossus. And then for her like crit mobbing, you're going to look for something like this with skill cooldown and skill critical hit damage. All of these are non-attribute fusion. For her external components, you're going to be looking for the Enlightened Mage set. This is ridiculously powerful for her. It gives us skill power and then reduced firearm attack, which we don't care about. But whenever we use non-attribute skills, we get 1 stack of truth, up to 3 stacks. And these give us 84% non-attribute skill power, which is just ridiculous amounts of damage. On these, you're going to want to look for MP recovery out of combat, max HP, max MP recovery in combat. These are the 2 most important pieces. The MP recovery is going to give you huge quality of life. I don't have a great memory, but you look for defense and MP recovery modifier. And then on your processor, you probably go for like max shield and item acquisition distance increase or equipment drop increase. You could also go for like a resistance on this. I'd probably go for double shield though. For the Arche Tuning, one thing that I got like mentioned to me a bazillion times is that we should use defense neutralization. Defense neutralization is a malachite. It's right where Valby is. Valby's got the M slot in her top right corner, which is where you want it. However, we're not going to be using defense neutralization on Valby because this doesn't increase the damage of her skills. She does non-attribute damage. This strips fire, chill, toxic, and electric. It does not strip non-attribute resistance, which isn't really a thing. And the defense down does not increase the damage of her skills. I play Valby as a skill damage dealer. That's the way that I prefer to play her. So picking something that doesn't increase the damage of her skills at all seems pretty pointless to me. It will increase the damage of your guns. So if you want to play gun Valby, this is good. But as someone who doesn't enjoy playing gun Valby, I wouldn't recommend using this on her. I think Valby's 2 best cores are the non-attribute cohesion. This gives you stacking non-attribute skill power, which is very nice. It's just more damage. Won't work against bosses, but very, very cool. And the other one that she can make use of that I like, that's maybe not the most impressive looking, but it is actually quite good for her, is the fusion tech one. Now, she doesn't have a tech skill, so you don't get this skill power, but anytime that you use a fusion skill, you get skill duration up. Now, 13.5% duration isn't the craziest thing, but it will give her an additional tick on all of her dots, which is very, very nice. And so this is a good option that you can use for bossing if you'd like. Like all of the things that give you skill power doesn't really matter for bossing because, you know, Ice Maiden buff exists. So duration's really, really nice to have more overlap and more dot ticks on your abilities. And then cohesion is what I'd use for mobbing. For the Arche Tuning boards, this is the board for non-crit. Note that the Enlightened Mage set only has 1 piece that comes with max HP. And so for that reason, I do make sure to grab enhanced max HP on her builds. Besides like the bossing one, that puts her over 10k HP. Anything under 10k HP can feel a little too squishy. So that's what her like non-crit build looks like. For crit, we're going to be skipping out on skill power. It is not as important or valuable as going for like cooldowns or the crit damage. So that's what we're doing there. Make sure we grab the HP. And then for like crit, I'd put the cohesion in. And then for bossing's a little bit different. We don't need range anymore. We're going to go for the additional skill attack versus a Colossus. make sure we're grabbing all of this skill crit damage, and then we make sure we're grabbing all of these little extra skill damage nodes, as much little skill damage nodes as we can get. And we also are bossing is the only one that we pick up duration, more overlap, more damage, more ticks. This duration node is actually very, very nice for her bossing. We don't go for skill cost or range because most of the time we don't need it. The boss is dead before we're having any issues. Guys, that's going to do it for the video. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know what Descendant you want to see next, and I will catch y'all in the next one, guys. Take care. Peace.